Alright all, it's Colin here. It's been a little while since the last video. In truth, I've been working on a large world building video, but it's had a few technical issues. It's taken a little bit longer than expected, so I'm going to put that on a back burner and I'm going to show you something else today. I've been digging through some old files and I've found all the footage to this illustration, which I want to share with you because really this illustration is one that changed the whole direction of the project. So let's have a look, shall we? There's a few drawings that completely changed the direction of this project, and this was definitely one of them. At the time, I wasn't trying to create some huge comic world or deep story. I was honestly just drawing characters that I liked, putting them in fun and strange situations, and seeing what felt interesting. But this image was the point when things started to become bigger. Originally, these characters were much smaller in scope. They were mostly just dogs driving around East London, listening to music, being a bit naughty, causing a bit of chaos, getting into trouble, and trying not to get spotted. It was all very street level, grounded very much in the real world. And honestly, a lot of it just came from my own life. How and where I grew up, the people I knew, the music I liked, old cars, pirate radio, graffiti, that sort of thing. For those of you new to my art, this little car is featured quite heavily. The idea that it's frequently borrowed from its owner by his dogs, Teeth and Fur, mainly for weekend missions. I think I'm probably going to create a video about the car. Its importance to the story is growing, because like many classic 80s shows, Dukes of Hazzard or Knight Rider, this thing is quickly taking on a personality of its own. You guys are constantly messaging me about it on Instagram, and it's becoming a character in its own right. This whole illustration took about 4 hours, and it's done with just the simplest of tools. A standard HB pencil, probably nicked from IKEA, Unipin fine liners, a 0.3 and a 0.1, and a Unipin brush pen. You can get them all in a pack from lots of places. Lastly, a Winsor & Newton Pro marker for blocking in all the blacks. They're not the best on the cartridge paper, as they tend to bleed a bit, but I leave a bit of a gap and fill it in later if I need to. This drawing actually started quite casually. I wanted to steer away from everyday life. I wanted to do something dynamic, something that felt big and cinematic, and see how my characters would react to something different. And you've got this tiny little car absolutely charging towards something enormous. And I like the contrast to that. The tiny characters v the massive impossible thing. I'm not really one for drawing monsters, even though my go-to genre is what I've discovered today via the power of the internet, is boxed up as urban fantasy or comedy horror. Things like Hellboy, Strange Things, Critters and Supernatural. I don't really draw that sort of thing, but I really wanted to push myself with the illustration, both in scale, this is A3 in size, but also to create a horror fantasy creature. At this point, I hadn't really figured out what the larger world was. Once I added this creature, it suddenly felt like there was something much stranger happening underneath everything. Not necessarily this exact monster specifically, this isn't a villain reveal or anything like that, but more a question of what else could exist in this world? And I think that's when this project shifted in my head. It shifted from funny animal characters into a world with mystery, hidden things, bigger things, and bigger ideas underneath it all. I really wanted it to have real hands, huge thick hands that could crush anything, reaching out, trying to grab the little car. With this, the body became more human in form, and it takes reference from the typical beefy, muscular comic characters like Hulk or Bane. The first Marvel comic I ever read was Hulk back in 1987, and I still have that one tucked away somewhere. like how rough this drawing is. It's a little scrappier than my usual drawings. It's definitely a little bit more traditional comic book in its style. All black marker and brush pen, messy and very energetic. And I think that suits the image better than if it was overly polished. It's supposed to feel a little bit out of control. What I like about this image is that it says a lot about the characters without needing dialogue. You've got this group of lads, tearaways, who are very much in it just for the laughs and the snacks. A tiny group of idiots, driving directly towards something absolutely massive, which honestly sums them up quite well. They're not superheroes, they're not the chosen one, they're the underdogs, and most of the time they barely know what they're doing, but they keep going anyway. And I like that about real dogs. They have a real sense of loyalty. They know what's right, even if they can't help be a little bit naughty. And they'll stand up for themselves, especially if their pack is in danger. Like little dogs that are super feisty. They don't care if their opponent is a housefly or a tiger. They'll stand their ground and give it a mouthful of colourful language, put it in its place. I'd been listening to a few H.P. Lovecraft stories on here, and that heavily influenced the whole rising from the sea theme, and of course the Cthulhu-style monster head, although it's not traditionally right. If I remember rightly, there should be more eyes. It's more an imagined version, as I used very little reference for it. This drawing pushed me further into the world building side of things. We've got this huge beast rising out of the dock, and this made me think, where does this thing come from? Could it be a sleeping giant that's just had its bed kicked? Or is it a summoned god or a demon? Could it even be a thing from another dimension? Is it formed from magic? And who dares do the bed kicking and make the magic? For all questions I needed to answer, it's exactly where this whole project started to snowball into something bigger. I started thinking more about hidden parts of the city, strange mythology, weird underground things, rival groups, and how these things might relate to the real world that I'm starting to push out from, and how much of this new world will humans actually notice. And once those ideas started appearing, they kept growing. And I don't yet know all the answers to all these questions. It's a rabbit hole I'm still exploring. And it's not something I'm ready to give away just yet. The mystery is important. But I like worlds that have a foundation in our real world, but also links to stranger myths and legends and history. It gives a sense of connection, a question of, could this really happen? I also started hiding more little references inside the drawings around this point. Reoccurring symbols, background jokes, connections between different pieces, nothing massively important. Just things for people to spot if they look closely. This illustration is nearly 6 years old now, and looking back at it, I think it was probably one of the first drawings where the project stopped feeling like random sketches and started to feel like an actual world. It was definitely the start of the world that Teeth and Fur and the gang now live in. It wasn't planned, nothing was fully figured out, but something bigger was definitely starting to appear. Something bigger than normal day-to-day life. And honestly, I really like that process. It's where I am now when I'm not drawing. Just following ideas, seeing where they lead, researching historical weirdness and how it joins things together, as I slowly discover the world as I go. If you're enjoying the Teeth and Fur updates and you want to help the project grow a bit, give the subscribe button a little tap. Until next time, keep on scribbling.